Everyone, nice to see you all here.
Thanks for inviting me. It's an important topic. Hot topic is something that
Almost every industry is talking about, thinking about. It's already something that is impacting an industry, or it's going to impact in the coming future. So quickly about me, I am Abhishek Surana here. I lead SEO at Course Hero. We are in the edtech space. I've been mostly in the edtech space. I'm also an SEO consultant and growth advisor. I've been in the industry for the last 15 years, primarily doing SEO, technical SEO, content-based SEO. Before I get into some of the details of the content here, a quick show of hands, like how many of you actually manage SEO for your brand? So, okay, not many. So this helps me understand that the content I'm going to share here is going to be a little high level. I'm going to go over a little bit about how to do SEO, and then more on how to optimize for LLM search, and also how to leverage AI for SEO. So very briefly, I know you guys probably know about user journey, conversion funnel. There is an SEO journey. There's an SEO funnel that people need to be aware of, which is every piece of content that's written needs to be discovered. That's based on the site architecture, that's based on your internal links, all of those content that needs to be crawled. It needs to be crawled in a timely fashion, and again, that depends on your sitemaps, that depends on your HTML sitemaps. Based on the quality of the content, the uniqueness of the content, the speed of your pages, indexation is then determined for that content. And then ranking is based on, is the content that you have is demanded or not, among other factors. There are more than 200 different ranking factors. And then a click is when a piece of content that's showing up on SERP and someone clicks on it, that's an organic landing. And then finally, how engaged the users are. Are people bouncing? Are people staying on the page? Are they going back and searching again? Are they clicking on a competitor's result? All of that are known as like bad bounces. So you want to minimize the number of bad bounces, and that's reflected in your engagement metrics. So that's the SEO funnel, the journey of a piece of content from an SEO perspective. A number of different KPIs that you may want to optimize for depending on the type of the business, depending on the space that you are, depending on your competitive industry. So I'm not going to go over all of this, but just wanted to leave it out here just for people to roughly understand what metrics are important in this space. Something that I like to mention in terms of trying to keep a good tab on is how are you doing versus your competitors. So a tool like a SimilarWeb can be used to see for the last 3 years, how are you trending versus your competitors? How much of your traffic is organic versus direct versus email versus paid versus all of the other channels versus your competitors, right? So this helps you get some leverage on whether you want to double down on SEO or a different channel. And I don't think I have to reiterate this enough, that organic is the highest ROI channel. The investment here is the people and some tools. Unlike most other channels, be it email or paid or affiliates, you have to keep pumping in the money to get that traffic. This is extremely high ROI traffic. It's also important to keep a tab on how your site is seen as an engaged site versus your competitors. People always talk about, hey, we need to improve time on site, pages per session, things like that. But like by how much? Ideally, better than your competitors is the first place to start. And then quickly going over some of the ranking factors before I go into some of the AI stuff. Again, a wide variety of ranking factors out there. I categorize them into three. One, things that you can't really control, which is based on demand. Like let's say there is Gen AI that's happening right now. You can't necessarily control that. If COVID happens, there's seasonality. If there's a competitor that's free or cheaper, you can't necessarily control that. But all of that can impact your organic metrics, traffic metrics. And then things that you can control. That will be your product, which is your UX, your brand awareness, the types of features that you have on the site, how unique your content is, the quality of your content, the breadth of your content, your internal links, page performance, metadata. These are all things that you have control over that you can prioritize on your roadmap based on which part of the SEO funnel, if you remember from 2 slides ago, which part of the SEO funnel are you lagging. Based on that, you may need to figure out what from these controllables you want to prioritize in your roadmaps. And then in between, there's things that you can't necessarily directly control, but are influenced based on changes that you make on the product content and SEO side, which is how your site shows up on Google SERP and what changes Google is making to the SERP layout. Some bad SEO advice to spot, especially when you're working with an agency. If someone says that, hey, we're going to help you get to number 1, nobody can control that. So if someone can guarantee that, that's a red flag. Just adding more keywords. Today, intent is way more important than stuffing keywords. Backlinks matter, but again, content is king. Backlinks to content that's low quality, not unique, again, it's not going to matter as much. People who say technical SEO is not important, is dead. That is still the foundation, no matter if you're
Either for traditional search or for LLM.
UX, again, is critical. You have to design your site, your pages for users, not for bots. I'm going to go over the AI content piece in a bit. You need to track everything. That's the one big issue I see in the industry when different sites are optimizing from an SEO perspective. There's not necessarily a clear way of measuring whether the changes are having an impact or not. So defining that, any change that you make, let's say you have, let me throw out a number, let's say you have 10,000 pages, you're making a change. You should be able to make that change on, let's say, half of them and compare it to the other half that you haven't made the changes. You can see what's the impact on crawl, what's the impact on indexation, what's the impact on rankings, what's the impact on clicks, what's the impact on engagement, what's the impact on conversions, whichever metric that you're trying to optimize for at the corporate level. All of these are trackable, measurable. So making SEO changes based on a hunch, based on a hypothesis, is only good if you can measure it, and only then you'll be able to confidently scale it and then report that back to the C-suite to get higher prioritization of SEO initiatives in the future. Not going to go over all of this. Again, these are some SEO best practices to keep in mind when it comes to keyword research, the type of content to create, page performance, how to leverage Gen AI. Again, the Gen AI part I'm going to go over a little bit more in detail in a bit. On the content quality side, more recently, this is about a month or so ago, someone had identified that Google does use a site quality score. So in their source code, they were able to see site quality, and what they identified is it's not correlated to links, it's the quality of your site is at the subdomain level. So if you have a brand.com but you have a subdomain, those are treated differently from a quality perspective. It depends on how many people are actually searching for your brand directly. And there was a strong correlation between that. Not sure if that is exactly how it's determined, but there's a correlation between how many people actually search for your brand on Google. Talking a little bit more about quality, it's also important to keep the hygiene of your site pretty strong. There have been enough case studies and evidence when you remove large volumes of low quality, duplicate, or non-demanded content, there has been a reciprocal increase in traffic for everything that you are retaining, especially on the higher quality side. And this is something that we have observed multiple times. Some quick mobile related optimizations or best practices. Obviously, don't use full screen overlays, make sure that all of your content is at least 16 pixels in size, basically making sure that you don't have to zoom in to be able to see the content. Again, you want to maintain a certain number of pixels in terms of tab targets, and there has to be a little bit of a space between the links. So all some good hygiene from an SEO perspective to keep in mind. Now I'm going to dive into AI's impact on SEO. Google is still huge in terms of market share. It's 83+%. The market share is saturating, but Google's revenue, ad revenue, organic traffic, those numbers are still quite stable. ChatGPT has grown rapidly in the last couple of years, but it's still about 4-ish%. So sure, we have to think about optimizing for LLMs, but let's not forget that the lion's share of organic traffic is still Google. That includes Google AI overviews. But if the current rate of ChatGPT's growth stays for the next 4 years, and that's assuming there is no change in how fast Google grows or declines, it's expected to catch up in about 4 years. So sure, it may not be the lion's share of your traffic today, but this is something that you need to prepare for. Again, it varies by the industry. Different industries are impacted differently. And I have a list of industries that are most impacted today and least. So we'll go over that. This is what we are seeing. We are seeing an increase in traffic coming from ChatGPT. At the same time, we are seeing some decline in traffic coming from Google. Obviously, the scales are very different. At the top, it still makes up for only a couple of % of our traffic. This is still 90+% of our traffic from Google. So in terms of industries that are impacted, the ones that are most impacted are in the publishing and media space, goes without saying, anything that's more informational on the finance side, health, education, ed tech, the industry that I'm in, travel, hospitality, e-commerce, retail, legal B2B services. And then the industries that are least impacted, at least so far, are more on the B2B SaaS side. Like very specialized services, be it in the healthcare space or luxury purchase space. So again, there are various reasons for why different industries are impacted differently, but it is fair to say that more informational content is more impacted than more niche content. Obviously, there are a lot of hallucinations happening. Many have seen examples thrown around that accuracy is not necessarily the strong suit today, although that's going to change over time. I'm not going to go over this. This is not advice that I'm giving you guys in terms of what you need to do for your health. So some burning questions like, will AI replace SEO? All right? No. AI SEO is still SEO. It will shift more focus on user intent. The focus will shift on higher quality structured content. This was already the case with traditional SEO, but there was a keyword component to it that was pretty prominent as well, but now it's going to be a lot more user-focused, user intent-focused. Also, over time, and it's not the case today, but over time, advertisers will also switch to LLMs, and once that starts happening, each of these players are going to change the layout, what content shows in what order. So that's something that you have to keep a close tab on, and something that you might want to react to be ahead of your competitors. How do you optimize for LLMs? Firstly, focusing on clarity, completeness, and providing the full context. There are specific structured data that you could use in terms of markups, but also tables, lists, those are preferred. FAQs rank pretty well when it comes to LLM search. And then if you can, provide a concise summary at the top or at the bottom, those get picked up as well. One other thing worth remembering is ChatGPT still uses Bing search for some of the sites that it cites at the bottom as sources. So let's say you're searching for a question on ChatGPT, and then for some of them it may show like up to 3 links. Those 3 links, I believe, are coming from a post-processing step from Bing search. So the same query, if you put it on Bing search, ChatGPT is probably picking up maybe the top 10 or 20, and then based on the actual intent of the query, will pick the top 3 to source from there. So you may still want to optimize for Bing search, something that we have neglected for over a couple of decades now. Consider optimizing or allowing explicitly LLM bots. That is especially if you are not worried about your content being stolen and trained and the traffic being taken away. So if you do want to continue to get more traffic through LLM search, then you may want to explicitly allow those bots on your sitemaps and robots.txt. And then continue to optimize for traditional search. Again, want to stress a little bit more here that intent volume is more useful than search volume, and I'm sure over time different AI-based SEO tools will try to reflect intent volume more explicitly in how they measure and track key SEO metrics. Can AI write SEO content that ranks? Yes, but I have another slide coming up that may give you a pause. But I would not recommend writing all of your content purely based on AI. There has to be a human component to the curation of the content. You have to make sure that it's accurate as much as possible. Original thought leadership is still given higher weight from a ranking perspective than AI-written content. And here is something that was shared not too long ago at a conference in a couple of weeks ago in Europe. Google now is giving the lowest rating to content which it believes is purely AI-written with no human curation or human involvement. And the next score is for content that has some minimal human involvement. So over time, you can imagine there's going to be an algorithm update that hits, which is going to target all of the sites with content that is purely AI-written. But having said that, I'm a huge proponent of adding supplemental content to your page using AI. So let's say you have an article about a specific topic, you want to add some facts, you want to add some summaries, you want to add some visualizations, you want to add some data or table, all of that, certainly use AI for that. This was also pretty interesting to note that within a few hours of writing an article, it starts showing up as a source on Google AI Overviews. This is something that one of the top SEO experts had shared on LinkedIn, that this is an article on top 10 ways to optimize for Google Discover. That article itself doesn't matter, but within 7 hours, this was listed as a source. One other thing that's coming up, again, depending on the industry that you're in, or depending on whether you're optimizing for videos or not, AI is coming to YouTube as well. So Google is already testing a video carousel at the top, which may or may not be the full video, but maybe like a few clips that is dependent or based on the intent of the query. So let's say you're searching for something, instead of getting the laundry list instead of getting the traditional list of videos on YouTube that you typically get, you'll get a carousel at the top that is more targeted based on the intent of the query, and may take you directly to specific parts of the YouTube video that will be more relevant for you. And obviously, they're going to be using AI to train that. Content sites are obviously going to struggle if they are not creating unique content, if there's not unique research, if there is not unique expertise that is shared, or if they don't have something engaging on that page for the user, because why else would a user come to a traditional site like a content site if they don't have something to engage with? It's not a unique perspective. It's not coming from a trusted source. So if you are in that space, something to consider. You want to make sure that you are providing unique value, which has to be or complexity. What should businesses do? Obviously, starting marketing strategy, overviews with your search marketing strategy. Focus on conversational content more than traditional keyword-based content. Start using AI to streamline content creation. Make sure you are balancing AI-written content with human curation. And then use the right tools to monitor the trends. It's very important to know not just how much traffic you are getting through LLMs, but also how much traffic your competitors are getting. There are many tools. I'm listing them in a slide that you could use, which will tell you exactly for which keywords, how much traffic you're getting from ChatGPT, from Perplexity, from Claude. So that will help you understand whether you want to double down on that. What's the opportunity? One other thing to keep in mind is how is the traffic performing on your site? So let's say you're getting 10% of your traffic from ChatGPT. Is that converting on par, much better or worse than traditional search traffic? And again, that will influence your decision on whether you want to double down on optimizing for LLM search or not. Something that we are observing is actually traffic through LLM sources that are cited. They actually are performing much better because they are users with higher intent. How are SEOs using AI? For content ideation and clustering. So you don't want to create similar content. You want to cluster some of the content and for that keyword augmentation. Creating summaries of content. Also refreshing content is something that you can do using LLMs, again with some human curation, but it's a much faster task today than it was in the past. Internal linking optimization. So this is where you can use AI to understand where are silos on your site and figure out which content pieces require more internal linking, which one are overlinked, which one are underlinked. And then you can do technical audits. LLMs actually are doing a pretty decent job. There are obviously dedicated tools that help with that, but you can also write your own scripts to do a technical audit of the site. One thing to keep in mind here is LLMs don't render JavaScript. So if you have content that's rendering in JavaScript, LLMs both will not understand, will not reflect the technical audit, and also not rank that much. You can do content gap analysis. You can focus on anchor text-based backlinks. So what I mean by focusing on anchor text instead of backlinks is LLMs don't necessarily fully understand the concept of links. So that algorithm doesn't weight based on types of backlinks, but they do weight based on brand mentions. So even if you're not getting backlinks, still getting solid brand mentions are optimal for LLM search, even though they may not be for traditional search. These are some first-hand learnings from experiment in the lab run. We have seen wins from an SEO perspective when we have used AI for title generation, for H1s, things like that. We have more than 200 million pieces of content across our portfolio companies, and we have used AI to generate titles, and it does a much better job of those than what we can do or what our users provide us at scale. Another quick tidbit before I go to the next one is meta descriptions. People who still are trying to optimize for meta descriptions, one easy hack that we identified was just don't show meta descriptions to Google. It actually does a much better job of identifying the right meta description to show because it knows what the user intent is, it knows what the page is talking about. you trying to optimize that for Google. In most cases, we have identified that Google does a much better job of that. So we saw an increase in traffic by just removing all meta descriptions. Content summarization and topic augmentation is something that's AI is very powerful at. It's very easy to create strong summaries of the content, depending on the type of industry that you're in. You may want to leverage that to lead in your users into understanding how to use your platform. Creating FAQ sections, again, you can look at your competitors, you can look at what generally is ranking on ChatGPT, you can generally also look at what people are asking in the people also ask section on Google, and then use that to train a model that will create FAQ sections for all of your article pieces. And it can do a lot more. One good use case is, let's say you have a large library of content and you want to understand what's the quality of that content, how do you want to prioritize which content needs to be refreshed, which content needs to be internal linked, which content is higher quality versus lower. Again, it does a really good job of giving you quality scores for the pieces of content that you have in your library, and you can leverage that to either refresh the content, change the content, kill that content, no index it. So things that would have been much harder, or you would have had to wait for actual performance signals to react to, you can use AI-based content quality scores for that. And this is going back to the why backlinks don't matter as much for LLM search, because unlike brand mentions still matter. Here's an example, like brand mentions now matter not because they increase authority directly, but because they strengthen the position of the brand as an entity with the broader semantic network. Here's a quick view of the different page types that perform well in LLM search. So core pages, articles, documents, those perform really well. Pages that are primarily based on video, images, UGC, they don't do as well on LLM search. Some tools to potentially leverage. I didn't know all the sponsors of the event, but there might be one here. And the one that I have at the bottom, LLM traffic tracking profound, is something that I would recommend. It gives pretty accurate tracking of how much traffic you're getting from each of the LLMs. What to do next? Audit your current strategy through an AI lens. Where are the gaps? What are the opportunities? How are competitors doing? Use the necessary tools to measure that. Layer in automation to free up creativity. What I mean by that is, if you're spending hours or a ton of resources in creating content, train them to leverage AI, but making sure that there is a strong human component added to it. Obviously, monitor LLM evolution closely and train the team on AI literacy. Lastly, there have been a lot of different terms being thrown out. GEO, LLM optimization, AEO, I still call it SEO. It's still search optimization, just where you're searching is different. And a lot of the traditional search best practices still do apply here. So just remember, SEO is a journey, not the destination. That's all. Thanks, guys.